The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs confirms that intense Israeli bombardments across much of Gaza continue, with hundreds of Palestinians being killed or injured, warning that an estimated 300,000 people in northern Gaza are at risk of famine, as calls for an immediate ceasefire go nowhere fast enough, while efforts to agree a new hostage deal remains tenuous at best. As Israel's premier maintained, a military victory was within reach within months.
I
utterly reject the Hamas monster's capitulation terms. Hamas is demanding, in exchange for the release of our hostages, the end of the war, the withdrawal of our forces from Gaza, the release of the murderers and rapists of the Nukhba, and leaving Hamas in place. Were we to agree to this, our soldiers would have fallen in vain. Were we to agree to this, we would not be able to ensure the security of our citizens. We would be unable to safely restore the evacuees to their homes, and the next October 7th would only be a question of time. I am not prepared to accept such a mortal blow to the security of Israel. Therefore, we will not agree to this.
Hamas's three-phased 135-day proposal would see all Israeli women, males under 19, the elderly and sick released during the first 45-day phase, in exchange for the release of Palestinian women and children held in Israeli jails, with an allowance of 500 aid trucks into Gaza daily. Phase 2 would see the release of all remaining male hostages, with Israel expected to withdraw from all areas in Gaza. Aid continuing to flow, while reconstruction to damaged infrastructure in Gaza commences. In the final 45-day phase, Hamas proposes the release of any bodies or remains by both sides, while humanitarian aid continues. The militant group believes that by the end of Phase 3, both sides would have reached agreement to end the war.
We had an opportunity today to discuss with the Israeli government the response that Hamas sent last night to the proposal that the United States, Qatar, and Egypt had put together to bring the remaining hostages home and extend the humanitarian pause. What I can tell you about these discussions is that while there are some clear non-starters in Hamas's response, we do think it creates space for agreement to be reached. And we will work at that relentlessly until we get there.
A new deal appears to be the best hope of any lengthy pause in fighting, with an Algerian-drafted UN Security Council resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire making slow progress in negotiations after early indications from the United States that it didn't have Washington's support, as the UN's top human rights official voiced deep concern about widespread destruction of civilian infrastructure in Gaza.
The Israeli Defense Forces are reportedly destroying all buildings in the Gaza Strip that are within a kilometer of the Israel-Gaza fence, clearing the area with the objective of creating a buffer zone. Destructions carried out to create a buffer zone for general security purposes do not appear consistent with the narrow military operations exceptions that are set out in international humanitarian law. Extensive destruction of property not justified by military necessity and carried out unlawfully and wantonly amounts to a grave breach of the Fourth Geneva Convention and a war crime.
As a diplomatic path out of this conflict remains elusive for now.
It is very difficult to preach hope when you sit in a safe place to people that are sitting in the middle of what is hellish. And I think we should take a step back and not be too bold and think that the big words are what will make the big difference. What is making the difference is our ability to put our acts together smart and put the necessary pressure on the points that would trigger change.
In 4 months of war, around 100,000 dead, injured, or buried under the rubble, as Gaza becomes a place where hope itself is struggling for air. Sherwin Bryce-Spees, SABC News, New York.